is Karen Rupp, and this is Natalie Gordon. We work at the Utah State Board of Education in the School Children's Trust section. The purpose of this video is to provide training for charter trust land councils for the School Land Trust Program.
What is the School Land Trust Program? I just want to explain to you quickly how we received these lands that were held in trust for the schools. At statehood, the federal government realized that they were holding too much of our land as federal land so that we would be unable to tax our way with property taxes to a great public education system. So what they did is they gave us some of that land back. They divided the state into townships that are 36 square miles, and then they gave us 4 sections in that township, so 4 square miles, to be held in trust to support public schools. The lands are managed by the School and Institutional Trust Land Administration, with the state as trustee and the schools as the beneficiary. The School and Institutional Trust Land Administration manages these lands to generate money for public schools. If you look at this map, you can see the trust lands scattered around the state. All of the blue squares are trust lands, and some of the blocked up blue areas are trust land blocks that we received from trades or from other selections later. How does the land make money for schools? The land makes money any way land makes money. A small portion of it is sold every year. The largest amount of money that is received is through oil and gas development. There's some hard rock mining, a lot of agriculture, grazing leases, other agricultural leases. And then just in the past 10 years or so, they've been focusing a lot on real estate development, both commercial and residential. And some of those land blocks are down in the St. George and Cedar City area, and that's where they've been focusing a lot of those efforts. When the revenues are generated from the activities on the lands by CITLA, CITLA then takes out their management expenses and puts the rest into the Permanent State School Fund. That money is then invested by the School and Institutional Trust Fund Office, and they have a diversified portfolio that will protect us against market risks. They then take out their fund management expenses and the expenses for our section at the State Board of Education, and they use those, the rest of the money stays there in trust with a portion of the earnings coming out for the School Land Trust Program. 20 years ago, the fund was at $96 million. Today, the fund is at over $2.4 billion. And that's because not only is the investment making money, but also the land is making money, and that money is going directly into the permanent fund and not being touched. Only the earnings can be touched. This year, our schools received $74 million. Next year, the distribution will be $82.7 million. That money is then given to the schools in the state for the School Land Trust Program. The charter schools take their money as a chunk off the top of that distribution. So when they say you're getting $74 million, they take a look at it and say what percentage of students in Utah are in charter schools. And then they take that percentage of money for the charter school distribution. This year it was about 11%. Then from that 11%, which was about $8 or $9 million, they take a base, which is 0.4% of that distribution, and that's the minimum amount a charter school will receive, because we want every school, regardless of size, to have enough money to meet their academic needs. After that, it's distributed on a per pupil basis. So the smallest schools receive about $30,000 a year, and then the rest, larger schools, get more than that based on how many students they have. New schools receive funds their first year based on their projected fall enrollment. The second year, that amount is adjusted to make it consistent with the actual enrollment. So if your estimate was low and you had a lot more students than were estimated, in that second year, your distribution will be even more than it would have been by the per pupil amount. If your enrollment estimate was high, Then you have fewer students and you're still working on filling up your school. Your second year, you may receive fewer funds to make up for the students that were funded the previous year, but not there. So now Karen is going to tell us more about the program and how that money makes a difference in your schools.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, the School Land Trust program was actually authorized by the legislature, and it was their desire that every public school receive funding, which was very inclusive of the charter schools. The charter schools must have a charter trust land council, and the governing board may serve as the council if the board membership has at least a 2-parent member majority. If they do not meet that requirement, then the governing board is required to set up a procedure to establish a council with a 2-parent member majority elected by parents, including an election process. So here are the requirements that if you are a Trust Lands Council that are required for your school's website that you will want to consider. You have to notice all of your meetings 1 week prior to the meeting. Make sure that you include the time, the place, the agenda, and a draft meetings of your prior meeting. Before October 20th of each year, and this also has to be somehow provided to parents without internet access, your council membership with their email address and or phone number needs to be on that website, and your meeting schedule for the year. Now, this can certainly be adjusted if something happens, but make sure that you notice that there is going to be a change. It's extremely important to the legislature that parents be involved in this process, and so they need to know who members of the council are and who they can contact if they have concerns. So please make sure that that is on your website. And then a summary of the prior year's School Land Trust plan, how it was implemented, what they spent their money on, so that they can understand that there really was a process and that it is making a difference. The final thing, though, is that you need to have rules of order and procedure which are adopted by the council. Keep in mind that this would be very similar to Robert Rules of Order, and when you hold your meeting, so that things can move smoothly, decisions can be made appropriately, and that these have to be done.
So your Charter Trust Land Council is going to be subject to the School Community Council open and public meetings requirements. That's if your Charter Trust Land Council is a separate elected council than your charter governing board. Those requirements are found in state code, and they are also found on our website, schoollandtrust.org. They just state that all meetings must be open to the public and that meetings must be noticed 10 days in advance and with agendas noticed as part of that notice. The agenda needs to state what topics are going to be addressed and needs to identify items that the council will be taking action on, so that parents that are interested but not members of the council can come and watch and participate and keep up with what's going on. You're also required to keep minutes for your meetings. Those minutes need to be kept for 3 years. And your rules of order and procedure don't just need to be on your website, but they also need to be available at your meetings. Finally, if your school is using the governing board as the Trust Land Council, then they just follow the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, and they don't need to follow these procedures as well.
Thank you, Natalie. It is a requirement that there has to be a school improvement plan. However, the charter schools may use their school charter in place of a school improvement plan. Next, you're going to hear this word quite often when we're discussing the School Land Trust Plan, and that's a data review. It is required of all schools. Let's talk about how to write a really good School Land Trust Plan. Again, the number one thing we want you to do is to do a data review of where your school is now, so that you can say, well, you know what, it looks like our scores have dropped in this particular area, or they're really good in this area, and so give you an overall idea of what areas need to be funded to bring up those test scores for your students. And then it will give you the ability to write your goals that will directly reflect where the critical academic areas are needed. Keep in mind, your goals need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be attainable. And please keep in mind, when we talk about attainable, sometimes we try to do too much with the expectation. That is not, we are not looking for numbers. What we're looking for, are you going in the right direction? So please make it so that you don't feel like at the end of the day that you have failed in some way. When you're moving forward, you're not failing. So please make sure that they are attainable. And finally, they are student-centered. So when you write your school land trust plan, we need to be able to determine what measurements you're going to use so that you know if you're on the right track. For instance, if you're a measurement, you may be looking at reading or math or something like that. What tool are you going to actually use to tell if it's making a difference? I know Dibbles has a tool available, and I'm sure there are many others. We need those. We need you to let us know what measurement you're going to use for each of the goals.
And please make sure it's an academic measurement. So often we get technology is our goal. We're going to buy 30 computers, and we'll tell that it's worked when we've purchased 30 computers. That's a goal, but it's not academic. We want to know how those computers are going to work with your curriculum every day to help improve your students' academic performance.
And along with that, sometimes we'll see if they're going to purchase something there, and then the measurement, they say, we'll measure it by, we just purchased the equipment.
Not an academic.
No, that's not academic. Then the last thing is to prepare the action plan, and this is really where it's going to tell you exactly how you're going to spend your money. So we, in that action plan, what we're looking for is who does what? What are you going to spend your money on? Are you going to hire teachers? Are you going to hire tutors? Are you going to purchase textbooks or STEM supplies or whatever it might be? Those things need to be listed. We're looking to see that, and that they need to reflect back to the goal. And then your expenditures need to match your action plan steps. Keep in mind, we're not looking for a book. We're looking for you to be specific in how you're going to spend your money. The beauty of this plan that the legislature set up is that they want this to work for your school and your students. So by mid-year, we are hoping that every single time you meet as a council, you are reviewing your plan to say, how are we doing? Are we implementing this? Or have we been able to hire the tutors we need to? Did we purchase the technology? Whatever it might be. And interestingly enough, this is where we find when sometimes people have been able to make purchases, it didn't cost nearly as much as what they thought they anticipated it costing. Or maybe tutors didn't spend as much time as they needed, and it appears that they're going to be having some money left over. So please make sure that you have the ability and are looking to spend the money. So make sure that if you do add an amendment, you go to the plan, the current plan, you scroll to the bottom, and there's a place that says amendment. Just click on that, and then you need to indicate, is this going to be inclusive of a goal that is already there, or do you need to do a new goal? And if you're going to move the money around, make sure that you indicate where you're going to take the money from and to be able to implement or purchase other additional items. And then just simply add the goal. And then again, make sure that you are reviewing this plan so that this can, an amendment can take place.
if the governing board is acting as the charter school trust committee, then the governing board can just, approve the amendment and enter it into the computer. If there's a separate charter school and trust committee, then everything that separate committee does needs to be approved by the governing board. So make sure that you're giving yourself time to get that amendment entered and approved before you implement it.
Thank you, Natalie. That is a great clarification. Okay, these funds were very specific. The legislature said they have to go to academics. So there are some items that you need to be aware of that should not be used. The trust funds should not be used. They cannot be used to cover fixed costs of doing business, such as intercom or phones or servers or desks and chairs. That's a cost of doing business. It cannot be used for construction, maintenance, facilities, security, or athletics. Keep in mind, the legislature said this is for academics, so you cannot use the funds to pay for non-academic, in-school, co-curricular, or extracurricular activities. However, they have allowed some behavioral interventions, but what we have to remind you of is that they have to be part of an academic goal. You cannot just put in a new goal that is strictly for behavioral. If you cannot connect it to an academic goal, then the money cannot be used for that purpose.
I saw a good example of that yesterday. I was looking at a plan where they were talking about how not only would, paraprofessionals coming into the classroom to help with small group instruction, but also someone who was helping with the behavior in that classroom was helping make sure that they were meeting their academic goals. So it was a math goal, but it had a behavioral component as part of it to help say, this is how we're going to improve our math scores. And that's exactly how it's supposed to work. Make sure that those behavioral interventions are part of your academic goal and that we can see the academic measurement from their implementation.
And I have also noticed in some of the secondary schools especially that we have seen that part of the funds that they're using has been for counselors in the behavioral area. They're not using the counselors to change classes or anything like that. They have tied it to an academic part of the goal, but we have seen that happen. So that is something that you also may want to look at. The other one is character ed and leadership. This is a limited amount of money. It's $7,000, and again, it has to be part of an academic goal. Finally, there is rewards and incentives, and this is very strict. It is limited to $2 per incentivized student per school year. It's not a lot of money, and you need to be very careful that you don't go over that amount of money per student. So please be aware of that.
And understanding that $2 per incentivized student limit, there's a section on our website that discusses low and no cost incentives. So if you have a program that you feel like needs incentives, take a look there and see if there's some information that can help.
Thank you, Natalie. That's a great suggestion. There are a couple of times a year that you will be going to our School Land Trust website. The first one is fall reporting. We're going to be talking about some specific dates. Please be aware that these are not arbitrary dates. These have to be met. And we've been criticized a little bit by not enforcing these dates. That is no longer the case. They are being enforced. So, by October 1st, and that's the deadline, so all of the work has to be done before this, your business administrator needs to enter expenditures for the prior year program. The books will have been closed, so he will have the money, the categories that he has put them in, and that will be available to you to look at when before October 20th, you will need to do the following things. The first one you need to put in is your council membership form. That needs to be on our website. Again, make sure when you put that in on the website that the correct membership numbers are appropriate, or it could display an error message and you will need to find where you made the error. So that's one that needs to be fixed. The second one is the principal's assurance form. This is simply a form assuring that the council is seated according to the law. And so the principal needs to complete that form. And it really is a very simple form. It's a yes-no answer almost all the way through. It won't take a long time to finish, but it does have to be completed. And finally, the final report on the prior year's implementation. By that time, keep in mind the business administrator has entered his expenditures, what he said you spent, and now you're going to report on the plan that was approved, the narrative, and then the financial report. If there's a discrepancy, and sometimes that happens, it may be categories or something like that, please work with your business administrator and make sure that you are in agreement on how the funds were spent. If there is a disagreement, please let us know what it is so that we can understand why they are not matching. That's very, very important.
And as you enter that final report, make sure to remember it's going to be on a public website. So keep it concise, keep it informative, and also make sure that there's never any student-specific data left in that report so that it won't be available to the public.
Great. Thank you, Natalie. That is a great clarification. The second reporting happens in the spring. And again, this all happens before April 1st. By April 1st, all of this has to happen. So don't wait till April 1st and then start this process. You're not going to meet the deadline. The first thing that you're going to have to do is very simple. It's a progress report. So it's simply entering a number. And what you're doing is you're looking at your plan and where you are financially, and then you need to determine, and this is where it would be well for you to work with your business administrator, to work with them and say, this is where we are financially. Tell me, are we going to spend the amount of money that is available to us by the end of the year? And that's the number that you're putting in, and we understand it's an estimate. So put in what you think you're going to spend. Maybe you're going to spend the whole amount, or maybe you're going to see that you're not going to have spent all of the money in the current year. The second thing then you're going to be doing is you're going to be preparing the plan that is going to be implemented the following school year. And so you're going to be looking, again, we encourage you to make sure by that time you have done another data dive to look now, how are your students doing this school year? What areas do we need to look at to help them be successful? So you need to base your goals on that school plan. You're going to do a goal, you're going to again do a measurement, and you're going to do an action plan. So make sure you do all of those things when you prepare your goals and expenditures. And finally, you're going to need to do a signature form. There are two ways that you actually can do this. The principal can go in on our website to the council membership, and there's a place that he can click on to send emails to the members of the council. And what you are agreeing to is that you agree that you helped participate preparing the plan for the following school year. It doesn't say that you are happy about it or whatever else, but what the requirement is that they need to know that you were part of the planning process, that this was not done just by the principal, it was done by the council. So that is really important, the signature form. You may want to consider if you a signed copy. You can print off a copy of the signature form at the meeting that you're going to actually approve the the plan to send to the governing board for their final approval is that you help participate on that, and you can simply sign it, and the principal can upload it on the website, and either one of those is totally okay. It's however you want to do it. We have new charter schools every year, and so they get their money their first year that they're opened, and Natalie talked a little bit about that, but they have until November 1st to be able to have all of this accomplished. There's a lot to do to set up a new school, and we're aware of that, but we want them to have their students to have the same opportunities. So they will prepare a plan the same way that you prepared the plan in the spring. They're going to be doing one in the fall. They have to do a membership report, and they also have to do a principal's assurance. Our website is www.schoollandtrust.org, and there is a lot of information on this website, additional training items, things that you can find out about trust lands. There's just a lot of information there, and we would encourage you to be able to go in and look at the website and see if there's things that would benefit your council as they're trying to do the job that they were elected to. Let me just close by saying the School Land Trust Plan is unique. School trust funds are unique across the United States, but this School Land Trust program is very unique to Utah. The legislature is very supportive of it. We are very supportive of it also. We want this to benefit students throughout the state of Utah, to help them increase their educational opportunities. Please be mindful, be careful of the decisions you make so that it will make your school and your students successful. Thank you. We're always here to answer any phone calls. Both Natalie and I are available. Thank you, and we wish you well.
Thanks.